been down so long it look like up to me. They look up to me. I got fake people showing fake love to me. Straight up to my face. Straight up to my face. I've been down so long it look like up to me. They look up to me. I got fake people showing fake love to me. Straight up to my face. Straight up to my face. Something ain't right when we talking. Something ain't right when we talking. Look like you hiding your problem. Really, you never was. Alright, I just wanted to play that song. I didn't want to play the original from Drake because I don't want to get this video flagged. But hi, welcome to my channel. My name is Angie, also known as The Light. And yes, like, subscribe, and if you'd like to make a donation, my PayPal information will be in my description box. Thank you to those who have donated already. Today, I'm going to talk about fake friends, but mostly about the female narcissist. I already did a video, but I went back and I re-watched my first narcissistic female friend video. And I think because it was like the beginning when I first started my channel, I looked like I was a nervous wreck. And some of the comments, people were saying, "Oh, I'm coming off jealous. I'm coming off like I'm a hater." And I'm just like, whoa. You know, people have to understand when you're dealing with narcissists, you're going to be consumed with a lot of anger. Okay, so there was no hating on a narcissist. I don't hate any narcissist. Actually, the narcissist hates you. That's why they tried to freaking ruin your life. I don't hate any narcissist that was in my life. I'm not going to say that I'm completely healed from every experience, but I sleep well at night because I know that karma will return to every narcissist. Ignore that noise in my background. Something fell. I know that karma is going to return to every narcissist that ever impacted my life, because they didn't just impact my life. They ruined a lot of other people's lives too. Anyway, so I'm going to try to do another video based on the narcissistic female friend, because I've had tons of them. My life, I'm going to say like my whole female crew. You know how usually women have their crew of girls that they go on trips with, that they hang out with? Well, guess what? My whole crew were all narcissists. Every last one of them. And it's funny because when my mother was alive, she used to tell me, you'll see by the time you hit 30, none of these girls are going to be your friend. And I know, listen to your parents. I'm telling you, mothers, fathers, even grandparents, they know because they've already been through it. They can see straight through your friends. If you think about it, I'm probably sure the ones that your mother or your father told you, that's not your friend. I bet you're not friends with them now. You're not. Now, I'm 34 now. But let's just say half of those friends were gone before I even hit 30. My mother was right. Thank you, Mommy, if you're listening. So my first friend ever, my first best female friend, she was a narcissist. And I met her when I was 9 years old. Okay, and we were in the same school, but we were in different classes. And they used to place for gym, they would have two classes join the same gym period, class. So I saw this girl, and let's see what we're gonna call her. Let's just call her Sarah. So Sarah, I just found her to be, different. She was actually Hispanic and white. So I always was attracted to other cultures, other races. I just didn't just play with black kids, when I was younger. But predominantly in my school was mostly just Hispanic and blacks. But for some reason, I always was more drawn to like the white kids or the Hispanic kids. And I guess because of my look and how my mom looked, they always thought my mom was Dominican. So a lot of my friends happen to be Hispanic. So I always was drawn more to these Hispanic kids. But anyway, so her, I started to play with her. And I remember like, oh wow, this is so cool. I remember us having like the same kind of sneakers on. I think they were like, I don't remember what they were. They could have been like Grant Hills or Jordans or something like that back in the day. And I was just like, hey, Sarah, like, let's play, So we started to play. And I remember like the following week when we had gym, I went to Sarah and I'm like, hey, Sarah, because they also had like assigned seats in gym too. So I remember I went to Sarah and I was just like, hey, Sarah, what's up? You want to play today? And no lie, and this is funny because you need to pay attention because there are narcissistic children. At this time, we are 9 years old, okay? Remember, your personality is mostly developed between the ages of birth to 7 years old, okay? By the time you're 15, 16 years old, that is exactly who you're going to be probably for the rest of your life, okay? You can look up the whole psychology, scientific form on the human brain. Anyway, so at 9 years old, Sarah looked at me and she said, do I even know you? And I'm like, I'm 9 years old. I remember like it was yesterday. This is how scary it is, how impressionable things that happen in your childhood impact you. And I remember like, huh? I was just like, yeah, like we just played last week. Remember? We were playing dodgeball and she was just like, I don't even know you. And she literally walked away. Guys, when you're 9, that's really devastating because someone who you think is just so cool, you're really excited to be their friend. Like, when you're a kid, friendship is everything. So I was devastated. But eventually she came along and we ended up becoming friends, like playing at lunchtime, playing at gym. She, I guess, started to like me, whatever the case is, found something in me. And the following year, we were in the same class. Now, this is also very strange because a lot of narcissistic women and men, they will copy you. They will copy your style. They will copy your way of dressing and everything like that. So when I think back, even at 9 and 10 years old, probably we're like 10 at this time, um, I remember like she had long hair. I had long hair when, a little girl, or we all have good, long, healthy hair. And I remember I started to, this is because of like Aaliyah was out. So she like wore the swoop to the side. So I started to wear like my hair to the side, or I wanted to do like a swoop ponytail. So I would do a swoop ponytail and then she would wear a swoop ponytail. And then I would get a pair of sneakers and then all of a sudden she'll come the next day with that same pair of sneakers. And if I went and got a Tommy Hilfiger shirt, she went and got the same Tommy Hilfiger shirt. See, when you're a child, like that's just cool to you. But now that I think back, all these signs of narcissism were there even at 9 and 10 years old with Sarah. Okay, so Sarah and I, we kept getting put in to the same class. Like we were in the same class from like what is that? Fourth grade to like eighth grade. So now we're just in the same classes. We're best friends throughout all these years that's going by. We're still best friends. And I remember like I would sleep over Sarah's house and it was really strange to me because Sarah's mom had a boyfriend. Sarah's parents weren't together. And she always wanted to like hide her father, because her father was white, he was Irish, so he lived somewhere else. He lived in another part of New York, and she would go visit him on the weekends, or when he came to pick her up, she would always like run straight into the car, like she didn't want us to see her father because her father was white. She was like ashamed of her white side. She only wanted people to think that she was Latina. But anyway, so her mom was like the cool mom. But when I think back to it, her mom was really freaking abusive. I mean, her mom would leave us in the house very, very young. She was always making Sarah basically like the mother of her other two children. And I remember us being like 10, 11 years old, being left in the house with her baby siblings. They were twins, with her baby siblings. I remember like her mother like cursing at her and cursing at us and drinking in front of us, and just, not really, she was more like a sister. She didn't really give off that motherly vibe, and I think that's why I thought her mom was just so cool. So it's like she loved coming to my house because my mom was more nurturing. My mom, would cook, and my mother would actually stay home and be with us and, do activities, take us out, take us to the mall. Like our mothers are like night and day. But when you're young, you think someone who has a mom like that, that's cursing, that's listening to hip hop and R&B with you, and you thinking that's cool. But no, like this entire time, she was basically raising a narcissist because she neglected Sarah's needs of needing a mother. Um, their relationship was very strained, very, very, very strained. And I'm going to say by about 18 or 19, Sarah moved out. But she didn't move far. She actually moved just across the street from home. Okay, so all this time, I don't know what narcissism is. We're like teenagers at this point. And, Sarah and I, lives are very different. I was extremely religious at this point in my teenage years. And Sarah took on to like the goth type of scene. So she started like going to like those moshes and, wearing all the dark makeup and all black. And she started, I don't know if she was gay, but she started hanging out with a lot of gay individuals. I'm not against gays, so don't be coming for me. I'm just saying like her whole lifestyle had changed. Then she began to like argue with me back and forth, like talking about how she was for Satan. And through all of this, I'm just like, no, I love Sarah. I'm going to stick through with her because I remember who she used to be, So she went through this whole goth thing, and then it kind of faded away. Like everyone goes through, I'm thinking in my head, everybody goes through phases and stages of their life. Whatever, she'll grow out of it. So even if it was just very odd to see her and I be best friends, because I was like this hip hop girl wearing like hip hop clothing and stuff, and she was like in goth. So it was like but we still remained friends through this time. Okay, at this time she never had like a real boyfriend, and I don't think I really did either. Like I had like one like kind of boyfriend when I was 16 that didn't last. So we're about 17, 18 at this time, I'm going to say. And I had like a best male friend at the time. So I had called both of them to my house and to introduce them or whatever. And I guess they hit it off because she ended up sleeping with him maybe like a week into knowing him. And then the next thing I know, like a month or two goes by and she moves out of her mother's house and she moves across the street to where my male best friend lived. She moves in with him. This is going to be a long story. So hold on tight. Grab your snacks, grab your drink, whatever you got to do. This is going to be a long story. Okay, so she moves in with this guy. Let's call him Jay. So she moves in with Jay, and everything was just like whoa to me. Like, I was really shocked because this persona that she put on was like, oh, she was this goody goody girl. And then next thing I know, like, I introduce you to a guy, you sleep with him within a week. Next thing I know, you're moving in with him. And it was just like weird, but I wasn't a hater. I was just, out there doing my thing, like trying to get to know guys. Um, so I really wasn't hating or anything like that. I was just like, wow, this is kind of strange, but okay, cool. So a part of me was also kind of happy. I was like, dang, like, I hooked up my best female friend and my best male friend together. Like, this is dope. Like, wow, like, they really together. Like, I did this. Like, I was like kind of excited at the same time because it was like, okay, I don't even got to go to two houses now. I can just go to one. At the time, Jay was actually living with his mother. Like, he was still living in his mama's house, but Sarah still moved in. Okay, whatever. So, eventually Sarah like went and got like a medical assistant certification. Her and her mother actually ended up going to school together. So Sarah became established. She did go to college, but she dropped out. But she went and got like, certified. So Sarah was, she was together financially, but Jay wasn't. Jay was like one of those smart guys that just didn't have no ambition. He just wanted to smoke weed and play video games all day, but still had like a high IQ. It was just really ridiculous. Anyway, so eventually, Jay was moving to Brooklyn. His family was moving to Brooklyn. Okay, so they moved. We were all living in Queens, so his family was moving to Brooklyn. So now I gotta travel all the way to Brooklyn to see them. Before I can even like go to travel to see Jay and Sarah, I was calling Sarah and Sarah wasn't answering my calls. And I'm like, what the hell's wrong with her phone? And we have Facebook at that time. I think we have Facebook at that time. And it was just like, I would try to speak to her on Facebook. It was like no answer. She didn't delete me or anything like that. She just wasn't answering any of my messages. So I'm going like, yo, this is really crazy. So I go to hit up Jay and there's no answer. So I'm like, yo, what the hell is going on? Like, why aren't they speaking to me? So being that I was so close to Jay's family, I was still close with Jay's mom, and I even used to babysit Jay's siblings, which is so weird because she had twin brother and sister. He had twin brother and sister as well. So I still was babysitting Jay's siblings. So eventually I would go to Brooklyn to babysit his siblings, and they would be in the house, Jay and Sarah, and they wouldn't be speaking to me. And I had no idea why weren't they not talking to me. So I'm going to say about a year goes by. I still don't know why my best friends aren't speaking to me. So it was really strange. Of one day, Sarah sees me like leaving the house, and she's like, "Can I talk to you for a minute, Angie?" And I'm just like, "What do you want? Like, what is it to talk about?" So she was like, "Oh, I want to be your best friend again." And I'm like, why do you want to be my best friend? You haven't spoken to me in a whole year out of nowhere. We didn't get into no argument. I didn't do anything to you. Like, why did you just stop talking to me? And so she goes, well, I felt like Jay and you had such a good friendship, and I felt like the best thing was that he doesn't be your friend. So if I tell him not to be your friend, then I shouldn't have been your friend either. And I'm like, what? I'm like, that's effed up. I'm like, we've been best friends since we were 9 years old. Like, and I've been best friends with him since my teen years. Like, how could you just stop wanting to be my friend. She was like, oh, maybe I was a little jealous. So she admitted to me that she was jealous about my friendship with Jay. Okay, so let's backtrack a little bit. The reason why she was jealous that I had this good friendship with Jay is because I honestly, would be real with you, I believe Jay's family, if they were going to pick a woman for him to be with, they would have picked me. Of course, naturally that happens. And but nothing ever happened between Jay and I. I never looked at him in a romantic sense because I'm attracted to guys with ambition. So I never took him serious. He was like one of the homies, where I would just go to his crib, we hang out, play video games, and just talk life shit. That's it. So, whatever. Me being codependent and silly and stupid back then, I forgive her, and then eventually I forgive him too. So we started to be friends again. Okay. Through this time, we're friends. Sarah develops diabetes. Sarah develops polycystic ovarian syndrome. And later on, I was diagnosed with polycystic ovarian syndrome, which is basically cyst on your ovaries. It affects your hormones. It affects your fertility, all these different things. So a lot of things started to happen to Sarah. Like, she started to get like, this affects your hormones. So a lot of women with PCOS, they get a lot of like, they grow a lot of hair, facial hair. She started to grow like basically a full beard and mustache. Her hair started to thin. All these things started to affect her beauty. She gained a lot of weight. And I don't know if I feel her and Jay were trying to get pregnant and nothing was happening. I'm pretty sure maybe she did get pregnant and had a miscarriage. And this happens a lot to us women who have this particular syndrome. Okay, that's another video I'll get into. So basically, I remember when she was frustrated and going through certain things concerning her diabetes and her disorder. I remember her saying to me one day, I just don't understand. How come you are not diabetic? How come you don't have PCOS? And and like, if it was me today, I would have been like, don't wish that shit on me. You know what I'm saying? But back then, I was just like, oh, maybe she's just upset. But that is a sign of narcissism. They want to see everything that they're going through in someone else. Like anything, any sickness, any death, anything that's hard, they want you to be going through it instead of them. They feel like it is everybody's fault. If they're suffering, you should suffer right along with them. Okay? If their mother died, they want your mother to die too. And I was just like, wow, I couldn't believe that she said that. But I brushed it off. And, through time, her relationship with Jay faded. They did stay together for a long time. I'm going to say they stayed together for about 6 or 7 years. And what happened was basically, he built himself up, cheated on her, left her for somebody else. And I remember, I'm going to say she met a guy from online very quickly and moved in with this guy within 2 weeks. That's another thing. Narcissists they cannot survive on their own. They don't have any type of skills to survive on their own. Yes, a lot of narcissists can hold a job, but they do not have normal adult skills. She met this guy online, had not even been broken up with this last guy, and directly moved from her apartment straight into this other guy's house. And a lot of times I also feel like when narcissists get really comfortable around you, to me it's a very bold spirit. Eventually they tell on themselves. it's almost like it's a cockiness of using people. It's a cockiness of like, yeah, let me tell you what I'm doing. It's like that demon just can't hold it in, and eventually it just tells on itself. So when she moved in with this guy, she told me, like, because the guy, he actually owned a building in the Bronx. And she was like, yeah, he doesn't have to pay rent because he owns this building. He makes money off his tenants. Like, I'll be good. I can save my money and I can spend his money. And I noticed that she started to buy a lot of expensive things. And I noticed that about a lot of narcissists too, with the whole name brand items and stuff like that, to validate them, to make them feel good, to make them feel a certain way. Majority of narcissists that I know, they either buy nice homes or nice clothing, name brand clothing. It's a facade. They have to keep up this look, basically. So she started to buy a lot of makeup. Y'all know makeup is expensive, and she wasn't buying no cheap makeup. She had like those clear bins with the drawers in them, the organizers filled with makeup. We're talking thousands of dollars worth of makeup. She began to buy like Tory Burch and Gucci, Louis Vuitton. Like, she was using this guy for his money and still keeping her money. When my mom died, um, she was with me. She would come to my house. But I remember when my mom died, I remember her like needing comfort. She wasn't comforting me. She made it about her. Like, oh my God, I never experienced death before. I've never been through this. Keep in mind, it's my mother that's dying. You should be comforting me. Instead, I ended up comforting her. She was actually at my house the morning that another narcissist came to my house. My ex-godmother came to my house and to tell me that my mom had passed away at 6 o'clock that morning, and Sarah was there. And it was funny because it was like when I was told my mom passed away that morning, everyone, well, not everyone, the two that was there, Sarah and the godmother, they looked at me to cry. I didn't cry. It was because I knew in my heart she was gone. I felt it that morning. But it was Sarah was like, oh my God, like, you would have thought it was her mother that died. Like, she totally freaked out and was screaming and crying, and she grabbed me, and it was just so dramatic. It was like, that's something I should be doing right now. So the entire experience of my mother dying, I remember she never comforted me. It was all about her, like, oh, I never had anybody this close. And I mean, Sarah even had my mom fooled. Like, my mother left like some things for me to give to Sarah, like after she died, like personal items. Like, my mom would introduce Sarah, like, oh, this is my Latina daughter, So she had my mother fooled too, basically. So through time, the friendship, it was just going downhill. As time increased, I became, more confident in myself, more popular, dating more, just feeling myself, growing into my 20s. And Sarah's diabetes, her PCOS was increasing. Her weight began to increase. She began to I guess lose touch of herself, like she let herself go, basically. She wasn't as attractive as she was when we were younger, and she just let herself go. And it seemed like she began to become more and more jealous of me. I remember when I was dating a guy after my mom passed away. I was probably about 24, 25 at the time. And he was a nice guy, a very nice guy. I can say one of the nicest guys that I dated that was actually someone who was healthy. He proposed to me, And Sarah said, when I called her, you're going to call your best friend like, yo, I'm getting married. And I called her and I was like, Sarah, guess what? I'm like, I don't want to say his name. I'll call him Eric. Eric proposed to me, and I'm like looking for that excitement on the phone, and there was absolutely no excitement with Sarah. Sarah was like, oh, I always thought I would get married first. And I was just like, but are you happy for me? And she was just like, yeah, I mean, yeah, I'm happy for you. And I was just like, wow. I mean, there was so many red flags of narcissism, so many red flags that this woman was clearly not my friend. But that's the thing about it. Like when you're a loyal person, you're a genuine person, you're codependent, you have that loyalty. You be thinking what they did for you in the past, but you got to focus on what people are doing for you in the present. It's like in the present. It's like you have to people, you don't owe anyone anything. Just because someone did something nice for you, they should have did it out of the kindness of their heart. And that's the thing. That's how I feel like this is a spirit. Like Satan knows that when you're a kind person and someone does something for you, you feel like, you know what, I gotta do something for that person. Like someone can give a genuine person a cookie, and then it's like, you know what, they gave me a cookie, so I gotta go bake them a cake. And this is what these narcissists, they play on that because they know genuine people are that way. Oh, they spent $50 on me. The narcissist knows, yeah, I invested 50, but you're a kind person. You're gonna give them back 1,000. And they do this for years, and people don't catch on to it. You got to catch on. So when people do nice things for you, you don't owe them shit. You don't owe them anything. What you owe is a thank you, an appreciation, and don't use them just because they're kind to you. That's it. It is nice to be in friendships where it's you do this, you do that for me, but you don't have to. It's good to be kind, but it's not mandatory. You should be kind, just naturally. Okay, so through time, the jealousy increased with Sarah. It just kept going on and on and on. All these different incidents with her, and it didn't end well at all. It didn't. We had actually had like another so-called friend try to say I was talking about Sarah, and Sarah and I had another parting. It was drama, and she wanted to fight me, but it was a whole bunch of drama. And for a long time, like, I felt bad, because I was just like, I wasn't talking about this girl. The whole thing of me being engaged, she didn't support that at all. It was just a terrible friendship. It was always something I was doing and wasn't pleasing her, and then she started to use me. And I know she was talking bad about me to her boyfriend, trying to make it look like I was a bad friend. So when I eventually met her boyfriend, he kind of gave me this weird look. And then he said weird things like, man, Angie, you're really cool. And I even think even he was trying to figure out, like, why did Sarah talk shit about this girl? This girl seems like a nice person. That was the energy and vibe that I got from him. And then she started to try to sleep over my house every weekend. And I kept telling her, you know what? I don't think you should be in a relationship. You live with your man, and then on a weekend you want to come to my house and sleep over. He's going to start thinking like I'm that single girl that's trying to break up your relationship. So she got upset because I told her she couldn't sleep at my house every weekend. It was because she did not even like this guy. She was only using him for his money. So she wanted to cut down her spending time with this guy. Do you know how bad I wanted to like Facebook this guy and say run from this girl, but I didn't. Honestly, the friendship ended with her just never answering my text one day. I text her like, hey, how you doing? And she never answered me. I never tried to go look for her because I knew, you know what, this girl ain't shit, you know? And it's so funny because years passed by and I actually bumped into her mother in Manhattan one day, and her mom hugged me and was just like, you know what, it's not your fault. My daughter, she doesn't know what friendship is. And you know what, even though I blame the mother for how she raised her, I mean, her mother was right, it's true. And her mom actually still speaks to me this day. Like, she follows me on Instagram and she inboxes me to, you know, to see how I'm doing or whatever the case is. And it's sad because I never see her mother post pictures of her. So it's like, honestly, I do feel bad for her. Even though she's a narcissist, she did this, she did that to me, I do kind of feel bad for the girl. Not bad enough I want to be her friend. Hell no. But you got to understand, like, you're in a better position than these narcissists. They're actually mentally gone, spiritually gone, okay? So we're in a better position, even as codependents, as sensitive people. We're in a better position. We have a chance to heal. They don't even think they have a problem, okay? Now, it's really funny how sometimes you need that confirmation. So there was a guy from my past that I had liked. I had this big crush on this guy when I was like 18, 19 years old. But I was still a virgin at 18 or 19 years old. So, well, I actually lost my virginity when I was 19. But at this particular time when I had a crush on him, he was much older. I was like 19 or 18 and he was like 28, 29, okay? And I was like, I'm not ready to date anybody a little bit older than that. And it's funny how I bumped into him and he was like, oh, you grown now, like, you want to go out now? So he asked me out on a date. So we went on this date and we're talking and stuff like that. And I have recently found out that Sarah's mom actually works at this guy's job. Okay, let's call him Larry. So Larry worked at Sarah's mother's job. So I mentioned, you know, Sarah's mom, and he was like, well, how do you know Sarah? And I'm like, well, how you know Sarah? I know you know her mom because y'all work together, but how do you know her? And he was just like, he said, are you and Sarah still friends? And I was just like, no. He was like, I went on a date with Sarah a couple of times actually. And I was like, what are you talking about? What do you mean you went on some dates with Sarah? And let me tell you something, guys. When you're a teenager, you tell all your friends, like, I got a crush on this guy. I like this guy. This is who this guy is and that guy is and da-da-da. It was so scary to me the way he described Sarah's behavior. And I believe him. He said he met Sarah at his job where Sarah's mom worked. And he said that Sarah approached him. It's very scary because Sarah always seems like one of those shy, timid type of girls, like insecure, like, you know, like one of those type of girls. The way he described Sarah was like she was this confident, like, sexy vixen type chick. And I'm just like, yo, this shit, it felt like, I feel like I was in a Lifetime movie. I was just like, what? He was just like, yeah, like, she approached me and complimented me. And then from there is where I asked her out on a date. And then he told me what he thought was strange was that she never let him drive her to the front of her house when he would drop her off from their dates. She would, like, have him drop her off 2 or 3 blocks down. So when I did the math of when they went on dates, she was going on dates with him when, one, her and I were still friends, and two, she was still living with Jay as her boyfriend. So this entire time, she was so obsessed with being like me or hating me, she went after a guy that I liked to feel good about herself. Do you know how psychotic that is? That was so freaking psycho. That was psycho. And this is what those narcissists do. Even if you're not aware of it, they're plotting on your ass. Even if you're not aware of it, they're hating on you. They're jealous of you. And I'm going to be real with you. Anyone who's, I said this before in another video, anyone that's jealous of you is capable of killing you. They have a whole channel, the ID channel. They have all these different shows. And the number one reason for homicide in all these shows is what? Jealousy, envy. So please be careful. But yeah, I'm thankful for that experience that I had with Sarah. I'm very, very funny when it comes to females, not just dating. I don't let just anybody get close to me. So I don't want y'all to ever feel like, you know, I'm funny style, but I screen people down spiritually. I need to read your spirit before, you know, I try to develop a friendship with you. So that was a long ass story, and there was definitely more in between, but pay attention to people who try to act like you, you know, have these sudden behavior changes, and a lot of times they're filled with so much rage of jealousy that they'll just switch up on you for no reason. Okay? They'll compete with you. You know, you give them information, they'll use it against you. They're going behind your back and they're doing certain things. Pay attention. I'm telling you, pay attention to people's responses when you're telling them good news. Okay? Vibes, energy. I don't know what you have to do to clear your chakras, to clear your spiritual discernment. Go on a detox. I don't know what you got to do, but you have to heighten your sensory to people's auras and energies. That's the number one thing. When I think about all the narcissists that were in my life, all of them gave me a weird aura every time I was around them. Or it was as if I couldn't really read them. I couldn't pick up who they were. I don't know if you can think back to when you met some of these narcissists. A lot of them, you'll be like, they seem nice, but you really can't pick up exactly. You can't pinpoint who they are. And I think that's because their soul is empty. There really isn't anything there. There's just a body walking around. There isn't any soul, any depth there. You know? Kind of like, there's a lot of people who can sing, but not everybody got soul. And soul is when, like when you hear like Aretha Franklin singing, you hear Mary J. Blige singing, and you start to get those goosebumps, and you feel like you may want to cry. To me, that's soul. I don't want to name any names. I don't want to put nobody down, but there's a lot of people out there who could sing very well, but they have absolutely no soul. It's good to the ears, but it doesn't hit your soul. And that's how I feel when I'm around narcissists. It's kind of like, yeah, they cool, but something, I don't know. It's like no connection. There's nothing. It's like a empty pathway. It just they feel soulless, you know? And I think a lot of times your lust is what is holding you to them. What you're seeing with your eyes, or they cool, they have okay conversation, they're fun to be around. But when you get down to the depth of the person, you feel absolutely nothing. I don't know, maybe I'm tripping, or maybe because I'm an empath, I can feel that. But try to think back to when you first met the narcissist. They might have made you feel kind of nervous, or you felt like, something's missing. They're nice, but something is missing. Well, that was one of my narcissistic female friend stories. Hopefully that information was informative for you ladies. Pay attention, or you fellas out there who make friends with females as well. Pay attention. I would consider she was a covert narcissist. And to me, those are the worst. I would rather an overt narcissist any day, because it lets you know up front who the hell they are. But these covert narcissists, it's like they working undercover, so you just never see it coming. All right, I'll speak to you soon. Peace and blessings.